All right, so today we have some massive updates regarding Johnny Somali. First of all, we have the actual trial date. We know when his first court appearance will be, and we'll get to that in just a moment. But most importantly, South Korea has just declared a state of emergency. They have activated martial law. Now, let me just clarify. There is absolutely 0% chance that Johnny Somali had anything to do with this. He is not important enough. But there is a high chance that this will affect him.
Let's dive straight into it. I've got a PowerPoint ready. Of course, because who doesn't love a good visual? Today we're breaking down what's been happening, why things have shifted, and what's going on with Johnny Somali's case. Buckle up, here we go. Here's the official update. Johnny Somali, also known as Ramzi Khalid Ismail, has had his trial date rescheduled. And let me emphasize this. It wasn't at the request of his defense team or Ramzi himself. The judge made this call, and that's a critical detail. Word on the street, both publicly and privately, is that Ramzi thought he'd be walking out of this situation by the end of the year. Yes, he reportedly believed he'd show up for trial, pay a fine, and leave as a free man. But guess what? That's not happening. He's not going anywhere for a very, very long time. The trial, which was originally scheduled for December 20th, is no longer happening on that date. So if you were planning to camp out at the courthouse or show up for the spectacle, scratch that off your calendar. It's been officially moved. Now, this is mostly good news. But as with everything, there's a small catch, and we'll cover that. So let's unpack the details together. Let's get to the details everyone's waiting for. The new trial date. Mark your calendars. March 7th, 2025. That's right, March 7th. We've got nearly 4 months to go before things move forward. Now, if you're familiar with the American legal system, you might be thinking about the concept of a speedy trial. You know, the right to have your case handled in a timely manner. But here's the catch. That doesn't really apply in Korea. There's no equivalent mechanism to push a trial date sooner, especially when it's the judge making the call. And yes, this delay is entirely at the judge's discretion, not something requested by Johnny's legal team. Here's the thing, it's pretty common for defense lawyers to try and delay a trial. But since this wasn't their request, there's no way to accelerate the process. Until his trial happens, Johnny Somali cannot leave Korea. Even if he goes to trial on March 7th and pleads guilty, it won't all be over that day. Realistically, sentencing would likely happen in April, at the earliest. What does that mean for him in the meantime? 4 more months of expenses to cover, and he's stuck without a work visa. Streaming is off the table too, as it's very clear he's not allowed to work in Korea under his current status. If he tries to stream, it could cause even bigger problems. So his options are extremely limited while he waits for March to roll around. So here's the reality. He's stuck. No income, barely any friends, and nothing else to fall back on. And let me tell you, after 4 months of mooching, those so-called friends, his cuddle buddies if you will, are going to lose patience fast. Can you imagine someone freeloading on your couch for 4 months? 1 month is annoying enough, but 4, that's a whole new level. Now let's set the record straight because there's already a lot of misinformation swirling around about this case. And let me emphasize, some of it is not just wrong, it's dangerously misleading. Be cautious about the content you watch or share. People have sent me clips claiming to show new statements from Johnny or Gina, but these are often old videos that are being recycled. For clarity, I'll admit that I sometimes review old footage too, but when I do, I'm upfront about it. I'll clearly say, hey, this is an old video, and explain why I'm analyzing it, whether it's for legal insights or to assess whether any potential crimes were committed. The point is to dig into the facts, not to spread confusion or sensationalize. So let's stick to what we actually know. People keep sending me clips saying, oh, look, Gino is turning on Johnny. But here's the thing, most of those clips are from months ago. Some are 4 months old, others 6 months or even a year. This is why you need to be careful with the information you consume. Always double check the context before jumping to conclusions. Now, let's talk about the facts as they stand today. Right now, the charges against Johnny are only obstruction of business and violation of the Minor Crimes Act. And the key phrase here is for now. No additional charges have made it to trial yet, so these are the only ones on the table at this moment. He's still assigned to the same court and courtroom, at least for now. And here's a potential issue. The courtroom isn't very large. If more people show up than expected, there's a chance they'll move the proceedings to a bigger venue. It's something to keep an eye on, but for now, everything remains in the same jurisdiction, the Western District, just as we discussed previously. Same prosecutor, same judge, same courtroom. However, this won't stay the same for long. Changes are coming, and yes, both the prosecutor and judge will be different soon. Why? Well, this recent trial delay was the judge's decision. It wasn't Ramsey's call, nor was it something the prosecutor requested. This was entirely at the judge's discretion, and the judge has access to far more information than anyone else involved. We'll dive into the reasons behind that in just a moment. Let's be clear, what I'm about to share is a hypothesis, but it's grounded in solid reasoning and informed by discussions with people familiar with the system. So, why would the judge push this trial date back? Here's one plausible explanation. The process may have moved too quickly through the stages of the criminal system. What might have happened is that the case skipped through stages 1 to 4 faster than usual. Typically, stages 2 and 3 each take around 2 to 4 months to complete. That means the entire process, which should take 6 to 8 months, somehow happened in under a month. Now, it seems like the system is course correcting. By pushing the trial to March, the timeline aligns more closely with what we'd expect for a case like this. If you consider that the incident happened in November and the trial is now scheduled for March, that's a more standard investigation timeline, 4 to 5 months. This pacing is far more typical in Korean legal proceedings than the initial 1 or 2 month sprint we saw. It's intriguing because during this unusually fast process, a lot could have been overlooked or rushed. By slowing things down, they're giving the investigation more time to address whatever may have been missed in those early rapid stages. Let's break this down. What might they have realized to justify the delay? One possibility is evidentiary issues. Here's a theory. Again, just a theory, but one based on discussions with Korean lawyers and others familiar with the system. Theory number 1. The judge may have identified problems or gaps with the evidence, witnesses, or the overall investigation. Perhaps they need more witnesses to step forward, additional evidence to be gathered, or the investigation itself needs more time. Normally, this process takes months, but it was rushed to set the original trial date of December 20th. Pushing it to March 7th brings the timeline back to something more typical. Now, let's weigh the pros and cons of this theory. On one hand, it makes sense. They could genuinely be delaying the trial to strengthen the case by collecting more evidence or hearing from additional witnesses. But here's the counterpoint. The charges already seem like a slam dunk. With the clear video evidence they've got, they don't necessarily need a lot of witnesses or extra investigation. Showing the video alone could seal the case. Here's the footage. It's undeniable. He's guilty. Done. So while this theory is plausible, it's not completely airtight. Let's move on to the next possibility. Here's a theory I know many of you are buzzing about. The possibility of adding charges. By delaying the trial, there's now more time to investigate and potentially expand the scope of the case. March 2025 provides plenty of room for additional complaints or crimes to be added to the docket. We're already aware of multiple complaints against Ramsey, both from direct victims and third-party reports. Here's the distinction. When a victim reports a crime, it's taken very seriously. However, when a third party reports something, it often doesn't carry the same weight, unless there's a significant number of similar reports, which could apply in this case. Now here's the counterpoint: jurisdiction. Many of the alleged incidents occurred outside the Western District, meaning they're outside the current court's authority. Why would a judge in the Western District concern themselves with incidents that took place in Jamsil, located in the Eastern District? For instance, take the Lotte World incident or the clashes with Korean YouTubers. Those reportedly happened in Jamsil, far from this court's purview. So, while adding charges is certainly possible, the issue of jurisdiction complicates things. If additional charges come into play, they may require involvement from different courts, depending on where the incidents occurred. Why would the Western District delay to add charges that might belong to the Eastern District? Here's one possible reason: the infamous pizza incident. Although it happened on a different night, it falls squarely within the Western District's jurisdiction since it occurred in Hongdae. If multiple incidents happen within Hongdae, even on separate nights, as is the case here, They can all be consolidated into the same trial under the Western District Court. So far, we've discussed two theories: evidence and additional charges. But here's another critical one: judge rotation. This was brought to my attention by people deeply familiar with the Korean legal system, and it's fascinating. In Korea, judges and prosecutors don't stay in the same role indefinitely. They're periodically rotated. Now consider this: if the trial had started in December, there's a significant chance a new judge would step in partway through the proceedings, as rotations are happening in early 2025. Imagine the chaos that could bring a new judge entering a trial midstream, needing to catch up on the details, and possibly disrupting the process. By delaying to March, they may be ensuring continuity with the same judge overseeing the case from start to finish, which would streamline the proceedings and avoid unnecessary complications. Here's the thing: having a judge handle a case from start to finish can actually be a good thing. When a judge sees the entire case unfold from the beginning, they have a full understanding of all the details, open to close. That continuity can make a big difference in ensuring everything is handled smoothly. But here's a more out there theory. What if the judge simply doesn't want this case? Think about it. Would you want to handle the Johnny Somali case? It's a mess. And the judge might be thinking, no thanks, let someone else deal with this. Maybe that's why the trial got bumped. Judges are human too, and sometimes people just want to pass the buck. Honestly, kicking the can down the road is nothing new. It's as old as time. Now let's shift to predictions, because this delay could actually be a positive move. First, it creates more time to investigate potential additional crimes. There's already speculation that Johnny may have committed other offenses that deserve to be properly investigated. Second, it gives victims more time to come forward. And as I've mentioned before, victim statements carry far more weight than reports from third parties. This extra time could allow those directly affected to step up and share their experiences, strengthening the case. Third, this delay essentially forces him into a form of prison until at least mid to late 2025. As I've mentioned before, Johnny Somali is stuck. He's paying for everything out of pocket, can't leave the country, and everyone knows who he is. If he tries to pull any stunts, people will immediately call him out. He's completely unable to create his usual content, can't work, and has no way to sustain himself. In effect, this situation is already a prison for him. If he ends up being sentenced to a year in prison, which is entirely possible, it will feel more like 2 years. Why? Because he's already been stuck in Korea for almost a year, just waiting for this trial to end. Keeping him there this long has effectively doubled his punishment. Then, if he's sentenced, they'll send him to serve time officially, completing his legal sentence. And let's not forget, he's paying for everything himself. Without a work visa, he has no way to earn money, and even basic living costs like food can easily add up to thousands. It's a brutal financial strain. Now, while this situation might seem like a perfect storm against him, I want to remain objective. There is one downside to all of this, and I'll address that next. The only downside to this delay is that public interest is likely to drop over time. YouTubers aren't going to cover this story nonstop for the next 4 months. I certainly won't. I'll focus on other topics too. That said, as March approaches, I'll bring this case back into the spotlight and provide updates as new developments happen. Updates will still come, but they might be less frequent, maybe weekly or even bi-weekly if there's not much happening. Rest assured though, there will be updates. Oh, I guarantee it. Just don't expect daily updates because the pace of news won't support that. This reduced coverage means public pressure might decrease. Back when the trial was scheduled for December 20th, it was at the forefront of everyone's mind. By March, it could fade into the background a bit. That's probably the only real downside. Aside from this drop in public attention, everything else about the delay is a good thing, at least from a legal and procedural standpoint. The system gets more time to do its work, and that's a win for ensuring everything is handled properly.